In 2009, a US law enforcement agency secretly hatched a plan to allow thousands of guns to cross the border from the United States into the hands of Mexican drug cartels. We're talking about insanely powerful weapons here. It was a bold move, and it backfired badly. I spent weeks researching this story, reading hundreds of pages of government documents. And today, I want to show you how it all went so wrong.
And allowed illegally purchased guns to walk from Arizona gun stores over the border to the Mexican drug cartels.
We have 2,000 missing guns. We have 200 deaths in Mexico.
This was a program of the government. For what purpose it was put in place, I can't imagine.
It seems so fishy.
You were not even informed about it? Absolutely not. This is a pretty big government.
There's blood. People died.
We weren't giving guns to people who were hunting bear. We were giving guns to people who were killing other humans.
I want you to take a look at this graph. It shows cartel-related killings in Mexico starting in 2006. This is when the newly appointed Mexican president, Felipe Calderon, took office and made battling the drug cartels a top priority. But despite Calderon's fight, in 2007, killings got worse. And then, in 2008, worse again, more than doubling from the year before. As cartel violence surged across Mexico, the blame started pointing north, specifically at the United States.
The United States is the largest provider of weapons to the criminals in Mexico. There are almost 9 gun shops per each Walmart in the American side in the border. Any single American is able to buy 1, 10, or 100 weapons. By the fact that it's legal to sell the weapons, what is not legal is to export the weapons to a country like Mexico, where those weapons are forbidden.
Okay, so we've established that buying guns in America is easy. But cartel members can't just walk into a firearms dealer and purchase weapons due to their criminal records. So how do they get the guns? Well, they came up with a clever way to exploit the system, as explained by former ATF agent John Dodson. So they'll find people with clean records, generally young people, underlings, maybe addicts, or anyone in need of some quick cash and willing to fill out a form with their name on it. This is called a straw purchaser. Someone with a clean record buying guns for someone else. And the cartels build a recruitment network across the US to employ these people. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, the ATF, was the agency responsible for firearm trafficking. And they had a plan. They launched new tactical teams along the southern border to stop American guns from flooding into Mexico. One of those teams was called Phoenix Group 7. But here's what they didn't realize. Phoenix Group 7 wouldn't help solve the problem. They would make it worse. The formation of Group 7 was led by Special Agent in Charge Bill Newell. Newell selected Hope McAllister as acting supervisor. Initially, her team was small, consisting of just a few rookies out of the academy. But within a few weeks, they had their first lead. October 31st, 2009. Andre Howard, the owner of Lone Wolf Gun Store in Glendale, Arizona, calls Hope McAllister. He's worried. A young man by the name of Jacob Chambers had just come in and purchased 19 AK-47 style rifles from him. Andre knew something was fishy. Hope McAllister knows that her relationship with these firearms dealers is everything. These guys are her eyes and ears on the front line. So she quickly looks into it. Then, just 6 days later, another tip from Andre the firearms dealer. Another suspicious man. This time, the buyer was Uriel Patino. He bought 6 of exactly the same AK-47 style guns, and again, paid all in cash. It doesn't take a genius to realize that these transactions are fishy. You've got a bunch of young guys all coming in, buying bulk AK-47s, always paying in cash. I mean, what more do you want? So Hope McAllister makes the call. She's opening a full-scale investigation into Uriel Patino, Jacob Chambers, and their network. But for the operation to work, Agent Hope McAllister needed one thing: the cooperation of the gun dealers. And the top of her list was Andre Howard, the owner of Lone Wolf Gun Store. From day one, Andre had doubts. The buyers were shady and he knew it. But McAllister leaned in. She told him that the ATF needed his help. Andre was a former army pilot, a patriot, so he agreed. Against his instincts, he kept on selling to help his country. But that's when things spiraled. Fast. In just 2 months, Jacob Chambers walks out with 75 more AK-47 style rifles and an additional 27 more guns. Uriel Patino drops $86,000 on 68 firearms. And that's just the beginning. Uriel recruits another man, Jamie Avila, who buys 5 FN Herstyles. Plus, 2 more names enter the picture. Joshua Moore buys 67 rifles for $32,000. And then there's Sean Stewart, the heavyweight. He buys 200 firearms at a price tag of $144,000. Phoenix Group 7 also identify the leader of the crew, Manuel Celis Acosta, who owned the stash house where these guys were storing the weapons. They also discovered a second stash location, American Auto Body. This place looked like straight out of a Vin Diesel movie. And that's how this investigation got its name. Operation Fast and Furious. As the Fast and Furious operation ramped up, Group 7 brought in reinforcements. More agents joined the team, including John Dodson and James Carser, plus a new supervisor to help out Hope McAllister. His name was David Voth. Then came the call from Mexico. It was from Narco Sonora, 220 miles southeast of Phoenix. Mexican soldiers had stopped a truck near the border, and inside they found 42 firearms. They run the serial numbers, and 19 were bought just weeks earlier by Uriel Patino. For Group 7 and for Operation Fast and Furious, this is a breakthrough. They've mapped a trafficking network which to date has bought hundreds of weapons. They've got a leader in Manuel Celis Acosta, and now confirmation. These weapons are leaving the hands of the original straw purchasers and crossing the border. This should be the moment they start to wrap this case up, start to make arrests, or at the very least, start interrogating these guys. But instead, nothing. No arrests, no interrogations, just silence. Under the leadership of Bill Newell, David Voth, and Hope McAllister, Group 7 holds the line, even as the gun numbers soar. And boy, do they really soar. By the end of 2009, Group 7 had flagged 19 suspects. Together, they had bought 690 firearms. Their total spend was $350,000. Most of it through Andre's Lone Wolf Gun Store. So why weren't they stopping it? At a meeting on January 5th, 2010, Voth, McAllister, and 2 representatives from the US Attorney's Office came to a conclusion. There is not enough evidence to prosecute. Instead, they devise a new tactic, a wiretap. We should hold out for a bigger case, try to get a wire. If it fails, we can always do the straw buyers. What no one said out loud, but what everyone understood was, by holding out for the bigger fish, this meant that you were going to continue to allow the straw purchasers to keep on purchasing. Allow them to keep buying firearms and sending them across the border into the hands of the Mexican cartels. This highly controversial tactic is known as gun walking. And most ATF agents would never dream of doing such a thing.
To put it bluntly, is inconceivable in my mind or the mind of any competent ATF agent to allow firearms to disappear at all. Furthermore, it is even more inconceivable that a competent agent would allow firearms to cross an international border knowing that they are destined for the worst of the worst criminals in the Western Hemisphere.
Now, 2010, the cracks in Operation Fast and Furious were widening. Violence on the southern border and in Mexico was escalating. Take a look at this graph again. With 2009 now done, we need to add the cartel-related killings. And as you can see, it's not getting any better. The violence was being fueled by these firearms, more and more of which were turning up in seizures. By early 2010, Phoenix Group 7 had learned of 4 major gun seizures. The first hit in December, in Mexicali, 240 miles southwest of Phoenix. the Mexican army raided a cartel stash house, and in there, they found 900 pounds of cocaine, 132 pounds of meth, $2 million and 48 firearms. 20 of the firearms had been purchased just weeks earlier by Fast and the Furious suspects Jacob Chambers and Joshua Moore. 9 days later, another strike, this time in Tijuana, Mexico. 5 firearms seized, 4 of them traced back to buyer Sean Stewart. Then, to ring in the new year, on January 8th, a 14-gun haul in Tijuana again. Same story, more of Stewart's weapons. And finally, 5 days after that, the first US seizure in El Paso, Texas. Local police raided a suspected stash house, and inside were 48 AK-47 style rifles, all purchased by Stewart. The ATF knew the guns were slipping through the cracks. They weren't accurately keeping track of these weapons as they crossed the border, and they were starting to appear all over the US and in Mexico. But as Uriel Patino and the other straw buyers are left alone to continue purchasing, the firearms dealers begin to panic. Look at this email sent to Group 7 supervisor David Voth from one of the firearms dealers.
I wanted to make sure that none of the firearms that were sold could or would ever end up south of the border or in the hands of the bad guys. I guess I'm looking for a bit of reassurance that the guns are not getting south or in the wrong hands.
Voth and everyone else in Group 7 knew exactly where these weapons were going. Straight over the border into the Mexican cartel's hands. Seizure after seizure after seizure had proven this. But he still needed the cooperation of these dealers. He still needed them to continue to sell weapons so they could build the case, even as the dealers continued to raise concerns. A few months later, the same firearms dealer who had previously reached out to Voth emailed him again, this time even more anxious, asking for guidance. Uriel Patino was at it again. He had just called the dealer to make a request. He wanted 29mm handguns. The dealer was uneasy. He wrote,
I'm requesting your guidance as to whether or not we should perform the transaction, as it is outside the standard way we've been dealing with him.
Voth replies,
We at ATF are very much interested in this transaction and would like to coordinate with your cooperation the delivery of these firearms to Mr. Patino. Our guidance is that we would like you to go through with Mr. Patino's request and order the additional firearms he is requesting.
So we have evidence of Voth pushing a dealer to go ahead with the sale, even though he clearly wasn't comfortable doing so. This crossed the line. For the rest of 2010, Operation Fast and Furious kept watching the same straw buyers buy more and more weapons. But then, in December, tragedy struck. On the night of December 14, 2010, just north of the Arizona-Mexico border, US Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was out on patrol with his tactical unit. They encountered a group of 5 armed men, a cartel rip crew, bandits known for robbing drug smugglers in the desert. Gunfire erupted. I'm hit, Terry cried. A bullet had pierced his aorta. They radioed for a helicopter, but Terry was bleeding badly. He died shortly after in the agent's arms. Agents recovered 3 weapons, 2 of which were AK-47 style rifles. Both of these AKs had been purchased by Jamie Avila, a straw purchaser that was being watched by Phoenix Group 7 and Operation Fast and Furious. In a cruel, twisted, dark irony, the weapons that were allowed to walk across the Mexico border had come back and taken the life of one of their own. This was the last straw. A whistleblower inside Phoenix Group 7 couldn't stay quiet any longer.
John Dodson, a federal agent, says what he was asked to do was beyond belief.
You were intentionally letting guns go to Mexico.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, the agency was. I'm boots on the ground here in Phoenix and telling you we've been doing it every day since I've been here. Here I am. Tell me I didn't do the things that I did. Tell me you didn't order me to do the things that I did. Tell me it didn't happen. Now you have a name on it, you have a face to put with it. Here I am, someone now.
John Dodson's whistleblowing triggered a congressional investigation into Operation Fast and Furious, and the operation was quickly shut down in 2011. But John Dodson continued to spill the beans on it all, shocking the world by revealing more horrific details.
We monitored as they purchased handguns, AK-47 variants and .50 caliber rifles, almost daily at times. Rather than conduct any enforcement actions, we took notes, we recorded observations, we tracked movements of these individuals, we wrote reports, but nothing more. Knowing all the while, just days sometimes after these purchases, the guns that we saw these individuals buy would begin turning up at crime scenes in the United States and in Mexico, and yet we still did nothing.
Dodson's testimony raised a major question. Who was responsible?
We want to know what felony, stupid, bad judgment led to allowing this program at the highest levels.
They requested internal documents, emails, internal memos, but the Justice Department, headed by Attorney General Eric Holder, didn't want to give internal communications up. Instead, they stalled.
If you're going to count pages like this as discovery, you should be ashamed of yourself. The pages go on like this forever. You've given us black paper instead of white paper. You might as well have given us a ream still in its original binder. How dare you make an opening statement? How dare you make an opening statement of cooperation?
Holder claimed executive privilege, blocking Congress from accessing these internal emails and memos. But this refusal got him in some trouble.
News this hour, the Republican-led House of Representatives has voted to hold the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, in criminal contempt of Congress.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no.
23 ayes, 17 noes.
The first Attorney General held in contempt of Congress ever in the United States. House Republicans say they've been trying again and again and again to get information from the Justice Department, led by Eric Holder, about Operation Fast and Furious, and the Justice Department simply has not complied. So
then President Obama stepped in.
I have complete confidence in Attorney General Holder. He's indicated that he was not aware of what was happening in Fast and Furious. Certainly I was not, and I think both he and I would have been very unhappy if somebody had suggested that guns were allowed to pass through that could have been prevented by the United States of America.
Despite Obama trying to protect Eric Holder, thousands of pages of documents were eventually released under court order, including this one, dated July 5th, 2010, sent to Eric Holder, outlining the Celis Acosta group and how they had trafficked 1,500 weapons that were going to Mexican cartels. Holder's response to this was, he never read it. Yet despite people knowing about this operation all the way up the chain, no high-level official faced any direct consequences. Eric Holder remained in office until April 2015 and faced no criminal or professional consequences. Bill Newell, the special agent in charge who oversaw the Phoenix division, was reassigned away from operational responsibilities. He quietly retired from the agency several years later, largely avoiding any serious consequences. Hope McAllister, the lead case agent directly involved in manning informants and straw purchases, was transferred out of Phoenix and reassigned to administrative duties. David Voth, the group supervisor who managed the day-to-day operations and clashed openly with whistleblowers like John Dodson, was similarly reassigned internally. In total, Operation Fast and Furious allowed 1,961 firearms to be walked, $1.475 million worth of weapons. When the operation ended, only 710 had been recovered. The other guns continued to turn up at crime scenes for years in Mexico and in the US. As Felipe Calderon, Mexico's president's reign, came to an end at the end of 2012, more than 60,000 people had been officially killed in the drug war. But what about the straw purchases that were being monitored by Fast and Furious? Their sentences are on the screen now. It's tragic that the death of Brian Terry had to occur for this operation to get shut down, but the lack of accountability for those involved, sadly, isn't a one-off. In the same time period, 2010, the CIA made a huge mistake by ignoring warnings coming from within its agency, which cost them the lives of up to 20 of their informants in China. It's a horrific story that you should watch right